Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to encouraging military spouses. I'm your host, Jen McDonald, and I was a military spouse for nearly 30 years until my husband's retirement. I'm now the mom of 4 young adults, including 1 active duty son. I also wrote the book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse. Through my experiences, I came to believe that we're only stronger together. Whatever life is throwing your way as a military spouse, let's talk about it. So hello and welcome to episode 78. This is your friend Jen, and I am so glad to be talking to you today. As I record this, it is the end of January. It's January 28th, 2022. And I kind of alluded to what we were going to be talking about in the last episode, which is about why make goals, or can you make goals in military life? And I find that the beginning of the year is a good time. Most of us take time to reevaluate where we're going, what's coming, what we've been doing the past year, and maybe set a resolution or a goal. But before I get into that, I did want to say this episode will be a little different. I'm not doing Jen's favorite things. I have been really busy with putting out the republication of my book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse. And I will link to those new editions. Right now, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I think something is going on with Amazon. I'm trying to get worked out where it's still linking to the old edition. So they are both there, the Kindle format and the paperback format. So the Kindle is $5.99 and the paperback is $12.95. So if you see it pop up as paperback, I think it can be anywhere from like $6 down, and it will say used. That is not the new edition. If you would like the old edition, you're more than welcome to get that. That will not be coming from me. It's usually sold by a third-party seller, so it will be a used book. So just so you know that, you will have to click specifically the link I share to access the new edition. And I think it's worth it to get the new edition. It's been reformatted. There's been some updates. It's got a beautiful new cover. And I think it's just a lot easier to read, a lot easier on the eyes. And we're going to be starting a book study of my first book in the Christian Military Spouses Facebook group here in the next couple of weeks. So if you would like to join us for that, I will be giving some behind the scenes and also adding some extra questions and tips for the reading. So please join us there. So all that to say, I will share some more Jen's favorite things on the next episode. If you're listening to this and it's not the new year anymore, I think it can still apply because we are talking about military life. And sometimes it can feel like in the middle of everything. I did a poll in my Facebook group about who's recently moved, who's about to move, and there are a whole lot of you. And so talking about new year, new me can just ring sort of false in military life because we just don't have a lot of control over what's happening in our lives. In fact, we have pretty much no control when it comes down to it. We don't have a say in whether our spouse gets deployed or sent for training, or if we're going to pick up and move across the world. I was just talking to a young friend of mine who they got orders to move overseas this next summer, and it's very exciting, but there are a lot of tasks that immediately become urgent and paramount in comparison to other things in your life because you have to get that medical clearance. You have to do all the things to get ready to move, get your kids ready to move with schools. And it's more than just the logistics, it's also the mental wear that can have. And so if you are in that spot, please know up front, I'm not saying anything to make you feel guilty because you need to just get through what you're going through and then think about these things later. But what I wanted to say was just because we are in military life doesn't mean that you have to let go of your own goals and dreams. We just have to figure out a way to work it in. So we're kind of at the point where if you made a New Year's resolution, it's January 28th, maybe you've let it go and you would not be alone. Studies show that over 25% of people abandon their New Year's goals within the first few weeks. So does that mean it's not even worth setting a goal? Well, I don't think so. I think setting a manageable, meaningful goal, even during this time of pandemic, even during a time of upheaval, that's something small that you can do just for you or work towards, it can help with the overwhelm of life always changing. So, how can we set some reasonable goals? We're going to talk about several ways. So, first of all, keep them small. Make a manageable short term resolution. So, say you want to start running. Well, maybe start working towards that 5K first versus I'm going to run a marathon. And it's not to say that maybe later you won't run a marathon, but start small, something that you can check off your list because that positive reinforcement will keep you going. Or say you want to finish your degree. Well, don't try to, it's that whole saying of how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Maybe it's been a while since you've taken a class and you just need to get your feet wet and get used to it. That is okay. Just commit to, I'm going to take one class and see how it goes. Write it down. So if you don't know who Michael Hyatt is, he is a successful entrepreneur and organizational guru. And one of the things he talks about often is the benefit of writing down your goals. So it helps you just really see and celebrate your progress. And I am a big checklist person. So I have all these systems. So I might use I have a little it's an app, but you can also sign in online because I have used all the different systems like Asana and Trello and Airtable, and they're a little complicated. And sometimes I want to check off a box that I got like the bills paid and my work done for the day, and I answered emails. And so it's a little app called Remember the Milk, and it's got a free version. So if you are a checklist person like me, you can sort it out into different types of lists. You can make little sub list of your list. I really like it a lot. It's easy and I do it. So you have to find accountability that works for you. And that does work for me. So be realistic. So don't set yourself up for failure. Don't say, I'm never eating sugar again. Maybe just cut back on sugar, right? If you're trying to get healthier. What about if you're trying to make a bigger life change, like we talked about going back to school? If you are wanting to finish the degree you started 20 years ago or completely change your career, it might make sense to ease into it. And there is a quote from a gal named Genevieve Kokorek. She decided to attend medical school in her 50s. So that's my age, which I think, wow, I can't even imagine doing that. And she just said, I started with one class to see if I would even like it. Make sure you can handle the material before you really commit. It's so important to celebrate your success. If you are making goals, reward yourself, like we said. And as you make a step towards your bigger goal, take time to reward yourself. You can write down rewards on a slip of paper, put them in a jar, and something that might motivate you versus just like going out to eat or something. Maybe it's a spa day or a new purse or going out to eat, a golf outing or a day trip. Treat yourself when you hit those little sub goals. Make your plans, but expect change. Some of the things I'm going to be referencing are from an article I've written for my site, so I will link to that. It's called 4 Ways to Create Goals When You Don't Know What Military Life Will Bring. So we all know the saying, expect the best, prepare for the worst. And I think that definitely applies to military spouses because you can have grand plans and suddenly find yourself solo parenting for a year that you did not intend. So maybe you can't sign up for a 12-month gym membership because you don't even know where you're going to be living, but you can still make fitness goals. If that's what you want to do, take up an activity that doesn't require a special location or equipment. What about if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow your business? Perhaps set it up so that you can keep working remotely. Scale back your schedule. I think that's one benefit of everybody kind of working from home during this pandemic. It's very normal now to work remotely. Just remember the time is going to pass anyway. So keep working towards goals, even if you know change is coming. The time will pass anyway, and better to keep making little incremental changes versus looking back and wishing that you had. Keep your goals flexible. I think I said that already, but have flexibility built in so that if you need to shift gears, you can. So, for instance, I work for a company and I also work for myself. And then I could even apply this to when I was a homeschooling mom. Sometimes I did not know what the year was going to look like. So, I mean, other than having like a curriculum that I knew we were going to do. But since we had that flexibility built in, it would be easier to map out like a quarter or even a month or half of a year because we didn't know what was going to happen at the end of that time frame. And that lets you shift gears if you need to. I've always been more of a flow of the day, or like I said, a checklist versus a scheduler, whether as a homeschooling mom, stay at home mom, or in my freelance work. It has really served me well through the years because you just never know when the dog is going to throw up on the new carpet, or all four of my kids would come down with the flu at the same time, always over the holidays, right? And that does not always neatly tie into my predetermined schedule. And I have known people that have had their schedule like on a marker board, or they'll have those little slips of paper where they have each hour of the day, like this is what we're going to do at this time, etc. And more power to them. That stresses me out because if I don't stick to it, and we never stuck to it, I felt like a failure. So don't set yourself up for failure and keep your goals flexible. Just remember, any progress forward is a success. I think it's fun sometimes. You're going to think I'm crazy because if you've been listening to this for a while, you know that my oldest son is 30 and my kids are ranging, my quote, kids range from age from 30 down to 23. But my daughter turned me on to TikTok. And I think the really cool thing is, though, if it's an algorithm. So whatever you watch, the more of that will come up. So if you're trying to watch fitness things or nutrition or healthier eating, I follow some Christian TikTokers and things like that. The more of that will show up. But I love the little, I don't even know what you call it. I think it's where they stitch it together, where it's their progress from maybe they just started running and they look back and they didn't realize how much progress they've made until they compared their photo from now to a year ago, or they compared like, I could only run slash walk, a couple of blocks. I could only run a little ways without stopping. Now I can run 2 miles. So I think it's so important to look back and give yourself credit for those little changes and goals that you've met. So how about a plan B? Most of us know that it's important to have a plan B. But what about embracing it? Sometimes we have to abandon our goals, and that is okay, and just have a backup plan in place, and that the backup plan becomes the plan. For instance, if you have a goal of strengthening your marriage this year, and a sub goal in support of that is to have a date night every week, and then your spouse comes home and says, honey, I'm deploying for 6 months. You obviously are going to have to change how you're going to do that. So be upset, be upset about the deployment, put the limit on it, and then, okay, you've decided that it's important to work on your marriage. Well, figure out another actionable way to do that. Whether you decide to write letters to each other. One thing I always recommend is if you and your spouse are long distance for a while, choose a book or a study that you each read separately. And then you can either email, text, or if you are able to get on calls or like FaceTime or Skype or whatever and talk about it, you have that connection of something you're still doing, quote, together. And then you can just pick up back with your date nights when they come home. So how about personal fitness goals? I know that's a common goal for New Year's resolutions. Back in 2017, I had finished a half marathon. I was so proud of myself. And I decided I was going to train for a full marathon, which seemed to be the logical next step. Instead, I found myself with a stress fracture in my hip, which was quite painful. And I was trying to keep running through it. And finally, I ended up having to go to the doctor and realizing it was quite serious. And I could not even run. I couldn't walk. I had to stay off of my leg for about 3 months and then really rehab and ease back into it. And that was quite frustrating. And then my husband retired from the Air Force. So guess what? I did not run a marathon that year. I still have not run a marathon. I still have that goal, but I gave myself some grace because sometimes things take longer than we think they will, and that is okay. So here's a good quote from Michael K. from Psychology Today, and he says, "The challenge is to consider the future with an eye on reality. We do not typically embrace the idea that we will encounter limitations or fall victim to accident or infirmity. However, considering other options allows us to move from life stage to life stage, situation to situation with greater resiliency and positive awareness, rather than experiencing the crash and burn of dealing with these changes without planning or consideration." So sometimes some of us, raising my hand here, can think too far ahead and like worst case scenario things to death. And then I know there's other people that don't think through those things at all. So find that balance somewhere in the middle that you are prepared to embrace your plan B if you have to. So I would say the last thing about setting goals in military life when you don't know what is going to happen, and that is just par for the course, is hope for the best. Uncertainty is definitely part and parcel of military life, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. It's important to keep a positive attitude, make yourself a priority. And I would say, yes, continue growing, setting new goals for yourself. I've heard it said that it takes about 21 days for a new habit to become a routine. So make the 21-day mark of whatever your goal is, your first mini goal to reach. And remember that if you make it past that first month, you are ahead of the game. You are doing great. And if you need to hit reset and start again, show yourself the grace you'd extend to somebody else. And remember, if you're a military spouse in the middle of a deployment or a move, remember that it could just be 2 steps forward, 1 step back for quite a while, but make the point of recognizing the overall progress that you're making. So I would love to hear from you. Do you have goals for this year? Are they personal goals? Are they business goals? Are they a change of life, such as you decided you wanted to stay home with your kids, and so you have set a budget and you are doing things to put that into place so that you can be at home with your kids? Or you decided to head back into the workforce and you need to refresh and take classes? I would love to hear from you. So drop me a note at jen@jenmcdonald.net or find me on Instagram or Facebook as @MilSpouseMatters. I would love to hear from you. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the MilSpouse Matters podcast. Connect with me at jen-mcdonald.com, where you can find a free deployment devotional and other resources, or on social media as @MilSpouseMatters. You can find my book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, on Amazon and other booksellers. Love the show? Please leave a 5-star review in whatever podcast player you're listening, and then share it with someone else who could use it too. Until next time, remember, you are brave, you are strong, and you've got this.